Hey, good evening, everybody. If you're just now tuning in, I want to welcome you to our Friday night wealth creation course. I want to thank you for joining. If you're on Facebook, Zoom, Instagram, we're about to have up and running, YouTubes, that's where you're at. I want to thank everyone for joining me here tonight. We're going to go live on a topic that I'm very excited about, and I can't wait to cover it with you. Now, before we get started, I want to get my technology straight here for a second. Okay, good. Before we get started, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. So if you guys are on Facebook, let me know if you can hear my mic okay. If you're on Zoom, same thing. If you're on Instagram, same thing. I'm excited to see everybody here tonight, and I'm going to be covering the topic of how to control your personal finances. Okay, how to control your personal finances. And what I mean by that is income, savings, investing, expenses, like all of the different components of personal finances that we deal with on a regular basis. How do we control those, right? Now, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is I own a company called Wealth Dynamics. And what we do is we help families become financially educated and wealthy so that they can navigate their economic futures with more freedom. Okay. And then be able to help build more prosperous communities around them. That's the service we deliver. That's what we create for people in their lives. And a big part of this is being able to control our finances. Okay. So I am a guy that helps people with their money. We're going to talk about money. We're going to go over money. Good to see you guys on Instagram. But before we do, a couple of house rules, okay? First things first, no negativity allowed on these feeds. So if you're watching on Facebook, especially if you're watching on Instagram, if you've got anything negative to say, go somewhere else. You're not allowed here. This is for positive people that want to improve themselves, that want to make their lives better, that want to share that knowledge with others. And so somebody that vibrates at the level of criticism and making fun of stuff that they don't understand, really, it's not the place for them. There's other stuff you could be doing with your Friday night. Second rule, okay, no making fun of other people's questions. Okay, if people have questions, if they have comments, if they have thoughts, this is not a place to invalidate that for people. The idea here is we're trying to create an environment where anybody is able to start learning about money. And a big reason why people don't share their questions on money is they're afraid of being made fun of for not knowing, right? They're afraid. We talked about this last week. People will be afraid of what others will think of them if they admit that they don't know something, when really all of the other people also don't know. Okay, so that's something we want to get established. And then thirdly, if you guys have questions, put them in the comments. Okay, we always answer questions. I will always acknowledge your questions and answer them as long as they're appropriate and relevant. And lastly, if there's anything we cover here tonight, because this is the topic of finances, if there's anything we cover here tonight that doesn't make sense, that's hard for you to understand, that goes over your head, if you feel your eyes start glazing over, you start yawning, you start becoming disinterested, that means there's something you didn't get. And I want you to ask those questions. If there's a word I say that you don't know what it means, like stop and ask, and I'll help you get that cleared up so you can learn. Because the thing is if you're wondering about it, probably everyone else is too, right? So that's something I want to cover really quickly here. Now, the topic tonight here that I'm going to share is how do we control our own personal economy? Okay, our own personal economy. That word has been thrown around a lot, economy, right? We hear it a lot recently because of what's going on in the world with the coronavirus and, banks and the stock market and gold and silver and interest rates and all of this very interesting stuff that's happening in the world around us. But what does an economy actually mean? Okay, an economy, when you think about that, when I first heard the word economy, I remember being in high school and I thought it meant the stock market. I thought that economy meant the stock market, and I thought of graphs and charts and the color green and the color red over a black outlay and seeing all of that stuff. And I didn't have any concept of it beyond that. Okay. Now, as I got into finances, I actually realized that the word economy, from its original root, meaning where the word naturally and originally came from, it means the management of a personal household. Okay. It's this term, personal finances. Personal finances, finances meaning income and expenses, right? And so when we think about finances and we think about those finances then being personal, that means they're mine. That's an economy. That's what we're talking about today. How do I control my economy? Because I can't control what the government's going to do. I can't control the next round of subsidies. I can't control my boss unless I am my boss. I can't control my neighbor. I can't control the stock market. I can't control housing and real estate, but I can control my own finances. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? Now, in order to establish that, I'm actually going to go over a visual tonight that we're going to cover that I'm very excited to share with you guys. And it's something I spent some time last week kind of developing, but it's called the economic scale of exchange. The economic scale of exchange. So that means that we're going to cover a scale, meaning the condition of top to bottom of someone's personal economy as it relates to the way they exchange. Okay. What do they exchange? Who are they exchanging with? What are they exchanging for? Because that is a big part. That's a big part of what an economy is. Okay. Now, what is the ideal picture of an economy personally? Okay, I want you to think about that for a second. When you think of your own personal finances, what do you think of when you think of like the ideal scene of that? Okay, do you think of, maybe you have no debt, you've got money saved, maybe you have investments, maybe you've got passive income. Okay, so I want you to think of that really quick, and then I want you to then think about what's currently happening. Okay, what's currently happening with your finances? Is your current picture compared to what you think it should look like the same? Or are there differences? Are there spots where you want this, but it's over here instead? You want one thing, instead you've got another thing. Okay, because those are indicators. When we look at finances, those are indicators that something is wrong with my personal economy. So if I said that I want passive income and I want to have savings and I don't want to have debt and I want to have lots of income, but I currently have debt and I've got no passive income and I don't have savings, there's something wrong. Otherwise my current picture would not be different than the one I just visualized. Okay. And when we start looking at what's wrong, and this goes back to several weeks back, when we start looking at what's wrong, we've got to look at, we are the sole cause of that. Okay. It's a hard pill to swallow, especially with personal finances, especially today. We have federal loans going out to people. We have living wage subsidy money that just got cut. We've got people giving unemployment benefits, and there's a lot of like other people impacting our finances. So it can be hard to have the viewpoint that somehow I'm the cause of all of this in my own finances. I'm not talking about the stock market. I'm not talking about the housing market. I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about my bank account, my income, my expenses, all of my bills. I am the sole cause of those things. There's nobody else that's responsible for my money. Money is a subjective matter, meaning it reflects who I am and what I do with my actions. So we have to establish whatever the difference is on where I said I wanted to be at and where I'm at now, I caused the difference. Okay, which means I made the boo-boo. I made the thing not look the way it's supposed to look, which means I could also unmake it and make it look the way that I want it to look, right? So that's the first thing I want to establish. Now, the second thing we've got to establish here is that an economy cannot happen in and of itself. Okay, an economy requires other people. An economy requires other parties. It requires other, countries to countries, groups to groups, businesses to businesses, individuals to individuals. I can't just be an economy myself and not have other people involved. Okay, and the reason why is the main thing that makes an economy move is exchange, right? Money going from one person to another, goods and services going from one person to another. That's exchange. So I've got to have exchange in order to even have an economy, and I can't exchange with myself. Okay, I want you to think about the last time you gave yourself something. Did you make money on it? Right? I didn't. I gave myself a latte a second ago. It costed me money. It didn't bring me money in. I can't give myself money from this hand to this hand and actually have a net gain. It's the same money. So I can't have an economy without other people. It's critical to realize that that's a component of this. Okay, because what happens, and this is the boat that I fell into, we start talking personal finances and we start talking about economy, and we start immediately fixating on how do I reduce my expenses and how do I budget harder and how do I spend less and how do I live below my means. That's all introverted. I can't make more money and grow an economy focusing on how do I do this and how do I do that and how do I spend this and how do I spend that. Like that's not how this works. I have to look at, what do you need? What do you need? What is that person looking for? What do they want and need? How do I deliver it to them and exchange with them? Then I can really say I have an economy. Okay. So what I'm going to do really quick, guys, I want to share my screen and kind of talk through a couple of things with you guys tonight. Again, we're going over something called the economic scale of exchange. And I'm just going to whiteboard this out and kind of talk through some of these points. Okay, so at the top of this, we have a couple of different indicators we're going to look at. me make a little more room on my whiteboard. We have a couple of different indicators that we're going to look at. Okay, so here we have scarcity at the very bottom. These would be the conditions that we're in. And then we have abundance here at the very top. Okay, we can all agree we would rather live in abundance than scarcity, correct? Nobody here would be like, I would prefer to have less. Most of us would prefer to have more, right? So how do we get that? Okay, and in order to get that, we've got to look at what conditions are we actually working in. Now, again, the economy is exchange. Okay, so if we have exchange here, we have the economic scale of exchange. And this is kind of what we're working with, right? Now, most of us with exchange, we exchange paper. Okay, we exchange paper. We have paper money, we have paper dollars. And so that's what we think of when we think of exchange. When I first started thinking of money, I thought of little green pieces of paper. That's what I grew up with. That's what I earned. That's what I saved. That's what my parents kept in their wallets. So I was like, okay, I exchange paper. Okay, that was the baseline of it. Now, aside from that, when I started to grow older, I realized sometimes I didn't have paper. Who's ever been in that spot where you're like, man, sometimes I just don't have money, or I didn't have money? In those instances, I was able to exchange debt. Okay, my first car, I was not able to give them money for the car. That was my reasoning, is it was a $10,000 vehicle. I couldn't buy the vehicle, but I could give them a payment. I could use debt. I could exchange debt to get the car that I wanted. Okay, now below debt, we then have digits. Okay, digits means numbers. You guys ever realize, like on your bank statement, it's just numbers on a screen. On your 401k, if I log into a 401k, it's just numbers on a screen. Okay, I can't actually have the money that's in there. Even with the bank, at a certain time, when you get enough money in the bank and you go to the bank and say, hey, I want to withdraw all of that money, they're not going to have it. They're going to say, we only keep 10 grand in the safe for the day. If you've got more than that, we've got to wire order it in and have it delivered. And there's a cap. So at a certain point, there's also just digits. Okay. Now, what we're exploring here is we're talking about as we go further and further down this scale of exchange. Okay. So most of us start with paper, and then we go down to debt. We realize we don't have paper. We have to use debt. Okay. And then at some point, it's all just digits. Like we actually lose the difference between a credit card and a debit card and money and debt. And it's just all digits. Okay. I've been in that condition. I've talked to clients and I could tell they were in that condition where we're almost desensitized to there being a difference. And so we just start exchanging digits. Okay. I have this many digits on my debit card or my credit card, and I can get this for it. I've got this many digits in my bank. I can get this for it. I worked, I got this many digits. Okay. So that's, and if you look at, like, that's kind of where we're headed with crypto. I don't want to get into the crypto craze and the conspiracies and the speculation. But what I can say is that it's a lower form of exchange. There's nothing backing it, right? And so we're here at this spot of basically using digits right now. Would you guys agree with that? Economically, as a country, as an individual, as a family, most of our interchanges happen with digits. Okay. Now, before digits, like we explored, it was debt. Okay. If you think about, and I'm going to get a little bit into like high level economics, the dollars that we use in the United States of America, they're not backed by anything. They're actually borrowed from a company called the Federal Reserve Bank. The Treasury in our country borrows those dollars. That's debt. So we had digits. Before that, it was just debt. Before that, it was paper. Now, as I started learning about money, this is something I want to share with you guys. As I started learning about money, I started exploring what happened before paper. What did we have before paper? What did people exchange for things? Because it hasn't always just been paper. Okay, in my lifetime it has, but before that, what did people do? Okay, and so what I realized is that before we had paper, we basically had assurance. Okay, assurance means promises. Okay, so right now we just have paper, right? We've got the dollar, it's backed by nothing. Before that, it was backed by the government, and the government had gold. And so we would say, okay, well, the government is solvent, they have money. And so because of that, we can rely that our dollar is actually good for something because the government has something that they can back it with. Today, that's no longer the case. We're like almost $30 trillion in debt. Our government operates at a deficit every single year. Our money is becoming worthless. the debt that other countries invest in from the United States, it has such a low interest rate that other countries don't want it anymore. So the insurance became gone when we went over to paper. Okay. I want to track this backwards. Now, before we had assurance, what did we have? Before we had assurance, we actually had gold. Okay. People exchanged gold. You guys believe that? Okay. We had gold. You know, between gold and assurance, gold was represented by paper. You could have a certificate that you could go exchange and get an ounce of gold with that certificate, or a fraction of an ounce of gold. Okay. So we're kind of taking this back and we're saying, hey, what do we exchange with today? Right now we exchange with digits. The reason why it's so hard for people to do finances and control their economy is it's hard to control digits. They're not real. Right? I can't like hold digits. I can't count the digits that I have and put some of them in this pile and some of that in that pile. It's all conceptual. So it's very hard. It's like grabbing at the wind. And so when we're trying to talk personal finances, I like to back it all the way back. We're not talking digits. We're not talking debt. We're not even going to talk paper. We're not talking insurance. Let's talk about where it started. It started with gold. Okay. So when I started researching finances, that's the point I traced it back to. Okay. Now, the problem was I didn't trace it back further than that. I stopped at gold. A lot of people do, right? We start thinking about money and then we're like, oh, gold. And I love gold. I invest in gold. I buy all the time. I sell gold to my clients as a service. So don't get me wrong. I love gold, but we didn't start even with gold. If you think about just mankind, they didn't just naturally have gold. So what did we have before gold, right? Before gold, we had something called a commodity. Okay, so if you research all the way back to like ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Babylon, they would trade things like wheat. They would trade things like certain stones or grains. Like those were considered commodities, things that everybody wants and needs, everybody uses in common. And so they would exchange those back and forth at different rates, right? So you could maybe exchange grains and wheat or oats and barley or whatever you might be exchanging as a commodity with another group or another country, and they would recognize that value because they had use for it. Okay, so at a certain point, people were just storing up commodities. They would save up, you know, this much wheat, this much grain, this much of their harvest. They would go exchange and barter that with other people. That's what happened before gold. Okay, now it's critical to realize this because where I'm going with this is a little bit crazy when we get deep into this. At the point we switched from commodities to gold, something happened where we lost control of finances as individuals, right? Think about commodities. If we had wheat as currency, how free would that be? Like from the standpoint of people could produce wheat, right? Anybody could grow wheat. All you had to have was land and seed. Right? If you didn't have land and seed, you could probably work out some way to get wheat from somebody. So if wheat was currency, it was very easy to get wheat. If grains were currency, it was very easy to get grains. Virtually anyone could produce it, which meant if I wanted to be wealthy, I just had to get more grains. I just had to get more of that object or more of that commodity, right? And so what happened here is we switched from commodities to gold. Let me make sure we've got our attendees' hands down here. Questions, guys, if you got questions, leave those in the comments. So we'll answer those at the end. If we switch from commodities to gold, think about that. Not everyone had gold. So we went from a currency that anybody could produce, that literally anybody could take part in, to one that only a certain group had. Okay, to one that not everybody could get their hands on. Okay, now the importance of this is on gold, this became government controlled. If you study back, either the gold was owned by banks, the gold was owned by wealthy families and royalty, or the gold was owned by a government. Okay, which means that the currency went from a commodity that everybody could produce with and everybody could create and everybody could have to this thing that only certain people had. Now, if we agree that the currency is water bottles, and I'm the only one that has water bottles, and you all have to exchange water bottles, you kind of have to do whatever I say to get the water bottles so that you can go exchange and get stuff, right? So this actually became reduced control for individuals. Gold definitely is better than paper, and it's better than digits, but it's still controlled. If you research back, you'll see that the Rothschilds, they would fund wars with gold. Countries didn't have gold, they had gold. They could manipulate the countries to go to war with certain people because those countries needed gold. So they would say, great, we'll give you gold, go attack these guys. Okay, so this is something that became government controlled. And when that happens, we lose control of our currency. See, government controlled currency, what that looks like is a government can say, hey, if we want to have inflation, okay, all we have to do is give lots of currency to people. Okay, stuff becomes more expensive. We want to have deflation, we just have to take the currency away from people. Okay, and so that's what ended up happening is we went to gold, that was controlled. Okay, we went further down to assurance, that was further controlled because now people couldn't even use gold. Then we went down to paper, further assurance, now other countries didn't even use gold. We just had one piece of paper produced by a country that the entire world operates on, and no one is allowed to counterfeit because it's illegal. To then debt, further loss of control, because if you don't have money, you can't loan it out. So here, if you have money, at least you've got some control. Here with debt, if you don't have money, you can't loan money out. So you're kind of screwed there. To then digits. Okay, digits being just, again, numbers on a screen. Okay, cryptocurrency, you can't make your own cryptocurrency. That they're like Bitcoin, for example, nobody can go get the guy who made Bitcoin and be like, hey, can you teach us how to go make some more? Right? So we're looking at these commodity cycles, and before the commodity cycles, we have to basically look at, well, where did that come from? Okay. Before commodity, like commodity, if we're looking at wheat, we're looking at barley, we're looking at things that we can exchange. What comes prior to that as an exchange? Production, right? If I want to have wheat, somebody had to farm the wheat. Okay, if I'm going to have corn, somebody had to farm the corn. If I'm going to even mine gold, for example, as a commodity, someone had to produce the gold. Someone had to mine the gold. Okay, NBA Boogie, exit the stream, please. No negativity here. This is only for positive people. So again, if you're negative, go play Fortnite, go do something negative. This is not a spot for you. We're going to tune back into our scheduled viewing here. So we've got production going on, which is somebody actually making an item. Okay, now if I have production, I can go produce anything. So you guys see the difference between commodity is the thing that I produce, production, the act of producing it. So production is even more freeing than commodities. If we're dealing in commodities, it depends on what the commodity is on whether or not I can produce it or not. So if we say that the commodity is copper, if I can't produce copper, there's still a degree of lessened freedom there. You guys see that? So this is going all the way back, and we haven't had production-based economies for a while. And then prior to production, we have security. Okay, security being me providing a roof over your head. That would be a level of security, me providing protection for you. This is before we had work being exchanged. It was more security and protection and like these agreements that we had, right? And so this is, again, like a higher level of exchange and currency. So if I was exchanging security, everybody wants security. Anyone can produce security. So the freedom there to be able to provide and produce that and build wealth with it is very high level compared to like paper. I can't go make my own paper because it's US dollars and I'd be arrested for counterfeiting. Okay, I want to make sure we're seeing the connection with that. So if we trace this all the way back, before security, we had simple help. If you would help somebody, that was considered valuable. Okay, before help, we had knowledge. Okay, so if you knew something, that would be considered valuable. Before knowledge, we have wisdom. Right. So if you think this is like way going back, like if you think like ancient proverbs and like Chinese, like, you know, proverbs and verses, like wisdom, everyone values it. Doesn't matter if it's in a different language. When you hear something wise, you understand it's wise and it helps you. Right. So, and then if we go before wisdom, we've got ideas. And if we go before ideas, we have intention. Okay. So the very top level exchange, what I'm going to get at here, the very top level of exchange is intention. Okay, so if you have intention, who's ever thought of like something and it happened? Okay, I remember as a kid, I was going grocery shopping when I was probably 8 years old, 9 years old, and I literally thought, hey, I'm going to find $1 in the next aisle. Went to the next aisle and found $1. That's called intention. Okay, if you're in sales, who has ever thought of a customer buying and like the next day they call you and purchase? That's called intention. Okay, so this is the highest level of exchange. And it's also the one that you control. Nobody else controls intention. The government cannot control your intention. Your groups that you spend time in can't control your intention. Politicians can't control your intention. That's your mind, right? So that's like private. That's your stuff. So you're able to use that to create exchange. Okay. Below that, as we go down the scale, you can exchange and use ideas. Okay. Wealthy people, for example, and this is something that's highly misunderstood, but a lot of us hate on wealthy people. We'll look at the guy that's, you know, running the company and really probably doesn't work that many hours, but he's making the most money, versus the janitor. We can all agree the janitor, like, he hustles harder, he works more, right? He's putting in more sweat, more hours, but he makes less money, right? So that's because the difference between the janitor and the guy running the company is his ideas. The guy running the company has the idea and he makes the money off the idea. The idea is more important than what the janitor is doing. Okay, so that's the track here. Ideas. Then we have wisdom. Wisdom is a little bit lower on the condition. We share wisdom with somebody. It's a fixed belief. They like it. They buy into it. We can make money off of that. Then we have knowledge, just generally acceptable concepts, things that logically make sense. We can exchange those for money. We can exchange those for help. We can exchange those for whatever it is we're trying to get, right? Then we have legitimate help. We can provide help to somebody and they will provide help back or another flow back because of the loyalty factor. Then there's security. We provide security, protection, whatever it might be, and we will be able to get exchange with it. But you can actually, if you're following this, you can actually see that we're starting to get lower and lower on this scale in terms of what we're exchanging, right? We go from security to production. Okay, production is essentially work. I produce work, that work is valuable and create something, and therefore I get money from it. Okay. Now here's one that's tricky. As I was drawing this out, this was a realization I had. We go back down from productions to commodity. What is the commodity that we all have? Time. Everybody has time. Time is a commodity. You get paid dollars per hour at a job. So that means that at commodity, you're not even being paid for your production, because your production is probably worth more than your time is, right? But if I'm being paid for my time, I am restricted on how much time I have in a day. So again, it gives me less freedom and less control over my own personal finances because I can only produce on a per hour rate based on that commodity. Okay, as soon as we start getting below production, we actually start getting into a lower band of exchange that's usually not as good. Okay, it's more sacrifice, it's more blood, it's more sweat, it's more tears. Later on, it's going to be more confusion. Then we get down from commodities to gold. We get down from gold to assurance. Again, assurance, believing in a group to provide for us. Then we get from assurance down to paper. We get from paper down to debt. We get from debt down to digits. And if we get below digits, we go into the category of faith. Okay, and this is not on a religious basis. This is faith in a sense of like believing in a group blindly that they'll provide for you, even though you don't know if they will or not. It's kind of like communism, right? Faith that the government will provide. We don't actually know if they will or not, but we blindly have to because we're kind of forced to. Okay. And then below faith, we have obligation. Obligation meaning you're forced to, right? This is literally at the obligation level. We have things like slavery and indentured servitude. Okay. So these are the levels of exchange. Now, most of us are not exchanging down here. Most of us are exchanging. Oops. Let me get my spotlight back. Most of us are exchanging time as a commodity, right? So we're exchanging time as a commodity, or here we go, or we're exchanging production. We're exchanging work, right? If we're up in the scale, maybe we're in sales, we might be exchanging ideas. Okay, that's why salespeople make so much money. They exchange ideas with people that help them. They're able to bring in tons of money. But if I look at this, again, we have abundance at the top of the scale. We have scarcity at the bottom of the scale. If I deal in obligation, it means that I exchange obligation out of obligation. I am basically a slave at that point. That is scarcity at the maximal level. Okay, I'm obligated to do something. If I exchange in faith, okay, faith means that I'm blindly exchanging something, hoping I get something back. There's a very low amount of control with that. If I'm exchanging digits, ultimately digits have no value. There's nothing backing it. Okay, so if I go to a group and say, hey, let me give you digits, there are certain people that'll do that deal with me, but the higher level people are not going to do that. They're going to say, no, I want a real asset. That's why you see, like, on social media, you'll see that with my stuff, the difference between stock investors, digits, and real investors, real estate, is security. Real estate is dealing in security. I'm providing a roof over your head. That is security for you and your family. That's a higher level exchange than I'm going to sell you these digits at this price, and hopefully they go up to a higher price, and you may or may not make money, but I do when I sell them to you. You guys starting to see the difference between this? Now, on this scale, there's also different groupings here. Okay. So if we're looking at debt to obligation, the group that we're exchanging, the item that we're exchanging is ourselves. Okay. If I'm exchanging debt, I'm actually exchanging part of myself. I'm obligating future work to pay interest and principal on something I borrowed. If I'm exchanging digits, the digits have no value. What is the value behind the digit is me. That's why you guys don't see me getting pumped about cryptocurrency. That's digital slavery. Faith, the thing that I'm exchanging is actually my own intention forcibly into somebody else because I have no other option. Okay. David May has a good question. I'll answer that real quick. He says, with faith, does that also include the fact that money actually has value? So yeah, if money had no value, which it doesn't, it has no value, then we would be operating in faith. Okay, we all know it's backed by nothing. It's a house of cards. The only thing that keeps it going at this point is the faith that we have in the currency system that it will keep going. Nothing else. Literally, that's a good observation, David. That's literally, and so we're exchanging ourselves with that. Okay, same thing with obligation. So that whole band is actually self-exchange. I am the thing being exchanged. That's not where we want to be. That's the very bottom of this scale, guys. So if we're exchanging with debt, we're exchanging with digits, we're exchanging with faith, we're exchanging with obligation. That is literally the definition of financial slavery at the bottom of the scale and financial prostitution at the top of that band. Okay, if I'm doing debt, digits, etc., that's simply financial prostitution. I'm prostituting myself out for digits and interest and things that really don't exist. And at the bottom of the scale, okay, I'm exchanging literally myself. You guys see that? Now here, the next band that we're going to look at from commodities down to paper, here, we're starting to exchange things. Okay, inanimate objects, things, right? And again, things are great, but there are only so many things. If we exchanged all of the things left on Earth, there would be no things. They would be gone. So there's even a limit on how many things there are to exchange. Okay, we could run out of commodities. We could run out of gold and silver. We could run out of corn. We could run out of wheat. As a kid, I would read in the Bible about famines. Like people would have, production and production and production, and then a famine would hit. And for, a year or two, they could grow no crops. There went their commodities. The economy would crash at that point because the things ran out. Okay, so things are better than exchanging ourselves, but they're still not the best. Okay, I would rather exchange things than me. However, I would rather exchange other things than things if I could. I'm going to kind of hit what these other things are. So as we get into these next few bands, the next category is we're exchanging concepts. Okay, concepts involve things like knowledge. Knowledge is a concept, right? So I can exchange the concept of knowledge. Help is a concept. Help is subjective. If the person felt helped, they got the concept of help, and that's something valuable to them. The other one is security. That's a concept. Okay, you could say that like I could give you real estate to live in, that's a roof over your head. You could look at that as security, but really it only is until a tornado hits. Okay, so that's just a concept. Production is just a concept. What you think is production, I might think is a totally different thing. Right? But these are concepts. Production is a concept. Security is a concept. Help is a concept. Knowledge is a concept. Now, here's kind of what I want to highlight here. I can do this more than I can do things. I can do this more than I can exchange myself. It unlimits me, right? Things, commodities. I can only trade however much time I have, however much gold I have, however much wheat that I have, however much, those things that I have. Concepts, I can come up with knowledge all day long. That's why you see content marketing taking off so much today, because it's concepts. People can share concepts. There's no limit to them. Some of it's literally just shit people make up, and they can unlimited make money on concepts. Okay, I can exchange unlimited help. That's why you see churches and nonprofits and religious organizations, they thrive because they provide help as a concept. Okay, security. You see the military, they always have money, right? Real estate, even security. Guys, think about the mob. That's all they dealt in was security. right? They would bribe you to provide security, literally from themselves. They would beat you up and stuff if you didn't pay them, but they were selling you security. They could do that in an unlimited amount of time. They made a lot of money doing that. Okay. So concepts are a better band to operate in than things or exchanging ourselves. Now, the next one, which is my personal favorite, this is the next band. This is spirit. Okay. When I exchange as a spiritual being, I'm exchanging intention, I'm exchanging ideas, I'm exchanging wisdom. Okay. Think about like just people that had that elements, intention, ideas, wisdom, like they're so high up. Oftentimes they do one little thing and tons of money shows up. Tons of help shows up, tons of followers show up, tons of, and it's almost effortless. Okay. So that's an idea, right? Intention, ideas, wisdom. So those are things that we want to exchange with. Now, to get into this band, like this is not something you can just be like, okay, I had the idea and now there's money showing up, or I have wisdom that I got from the Bible or from a book or from a proverb. I'm going to share it with you. Now I'm going to make money. That's not how it works. Okay. Like it's something you actually still have to exchange with someone. They have to find valuable. It has to be wanted and needed. Right. But if we look at this, what if we've been exchanging ourselves through debt? I've met people that are six figures in debt. They're in slavery. They exchange themselves every single day. I've been there where I've exchanged myself every single day trying to pay off my debt. Or I'm just dealing in digits where I have so much confusion on the topic of money that credit, debt, all of that's the same thing to me. I have no differentiation and I just work my ass off trying to figure this thing out, and I never made progress doing that. People live there. People are in that spot now. Most of America is in that spot now. So what if we could go from oneself to things? That would be an improvement. If I go from exchanging myself to exchanging a commodity or a thing instead, that's 100% better. Okay. Or, and this is like, being like paycheck to paycheck and really not making it, like exchanging oneself to things, maybe getting like a good solid career or corporate job, right? Like I'm exchanging my time at that point. At the best, I'm exchanging my time. That's still better than exchanging literally myself. Then we go into concepts. What if I can go from that to concepts? Who's ever made the jump from an hourly rate or salary rate job to sales? Okay, anyone that's done that knows exactly what I mean. Once you figure that game out, you go from trading time at a job to then trading production. If I produce more, I make more. Okay, if I'm working in a company, what they want more than production is security. They want me to make sure the company is going to stay there, right? That's where you see people becoming executives. You watch a great example of this is freaking Grant Cardone and Jared Glant, right? Jared is Grant's VP, starts in this category as just trading time for money, works into production, then gets into security of like keeping the company going. Then he's actually providing help. Then he's providing knowledge to help out even more. And now he's like an executive in the company. You can see that with like countless executives. That's how they move up the line, is they go from exchanging the commodity of their time to then becoming a producer, to then becoming somebody that secures the company and working their way up those steps. Okay. And this is something I'm excited about this because no one ever shared this with me. Okay. I literally thought of this last week, like sitting there eating dinner, boom, pops in my head. I want to share with you guys, because if I would have had this as a roadmap to say, I'm down here in debt, I need to go all the way up here, and I just need to follow these steps, like I would have been so much faster. Okay. And then if you can get into the concept of exchanging at a spiritual level, of I'm exchanging intention and ideas and wisdom, like then it's just unfair how much more money you make, how much more support you get, investments you get. Like that's really the band you want to be in. Okay. But what's crazy with this is if you look at the things that are parallel with this scale, there's a couple of things here that actually are parallel. And I'm going to share them with you because it really puts this into perspective. There are 4 different lines that track with this almost identically. Okay. So the first one here is security. Okay. So we have security at the top. The more I am exchanging at the higher levels of sales, the more security I have, right? The opposite of security would be insecurity. So the more I exchange at the bottom levels of this scale, the less security I have. right? Who would agree with me that if I'm exchanging out of obligation, I have less security than if I'm dealing with wisdom and knowledge and help and security, right? Literally on the higher part of the scale, it's called security, meaning we're getting that, right? On this next one, the other one that we see here is, like we said, abundance. So at the top of the scale, I'm exchanging in abundance. Literally, like for example, ideas. You can think of ideas all day long and never run out of them, right? So if I'm exchanging in that band of this, I'm exchanging literally in abundance because the thing I'm exchanging is unlimited. The more limited the things I exchange are, the less abundance I'm going to have. The more unlimited, the more abundance I'll have. So at the bottom of the scale, if I'm exchanging with debt or digits or faith or obligation, I'm going to be in scarcity, just as a result or byproduct of that. Okay. The other thing here that we see is freedom, right? So the more I'm at that top level of exchanging, help and security and knowledge and wisdom and ideas and intention, that's freedom. Because I can produce more and more and more and have more and more excess, which equates to more and more freedom, and I'm not obligated to anything. That's what we try and help all my clients get to. At the bottom here, we have literally slavery. If I'm exchanging with obligation, by definition, that's slavery. There's no if and but about that, right? And then finally, the last one that tracks with this is control. Okay, at the top of this, I exchange and I get control. At the bottom of this, if I'm exchanging in the lower level, I am controlled. Okay, and I know this is a little bit messy to look at, but this is something that I want to share with you guys, because again, if I would have had this like just starting out, it would have been incredible for me, like being able to grow my income, expand my personal finances, and improve my personal wealth much faster. And so if you have this today, like what I would be looking at is I would be looking at, where am I at currently? What do I deal in mostly? Okay. Do I deal with debt? Do I deal with digits? Am I dealing just with paper? Paper was when I was a Dave Ramsey fan and I did the envelope system. I was exchanging with paper. Okay. Like people that are like really into that system, nothing wrong with it. It helped me get past the debt stage. But look where I'm at. If I'm only doing paper, how much more room up do I have to go? Like I can't just stay at paper. If I'm in gold, even that, I can't just stay there. I've got to go up further. Okay. Now, as we're doing this, like there's different things my company does to help work people up from each level here. So we're looking at basically like a lot of this stuff is stuff that my company helps people improve upon and cover. So if someone's in debt, we have a way to help them get from debt to at least having paper, which is better than debt. If they have paper, we have a way to get them from paper at least into gold. Okay. And then up further than that, if you have gold, we have a way to get you into production and security and real estate. Right. And that's something that you continue growing up and up and up on the scale. But it's important to realize, where am I at today? And it's important to realize, what is the next one? Okay. Because it's what I'm going to wrap up with here before I answer questions. It's very hard to say, okay, let's say I'm in the band of debt. I exchange debt. That's what I deal in. It's very hard for me to go from debt to ideas. I see people try and do it too often. It doesn't work. Okay. If I'm in debt, my next step is paper. I don't get to skip that. Okay. Because if I was able to skip that, I would already be at ideas. I've got to work my way up and graduate through each of these steps until I'm at the higher levels. Okay, so naturally, I don't have to spend a ton of time on any one of these, but I do have to at least go through those steps and through those different spots and work my way up to the top. And at the top, like that's where you see real wealth happening. Okay, so guys, I want to wrap up here and leave a couple of minutes open for questions. Let me go ahead and unshare my board, and I'm going to answer questions here that we have online. Josiah's got a question. So he says, hey, I joined around 6:30. Will this be available on YouTube? Incredible content. Josiah, thank you so much for that. So the course will be available on YouTube. You can go there and check it out. You can also go to my website is membership.jerryfetta.com. We've been doing courses like this for years now. So if you want to go look at all of those, you can see that on that website. Again, that's membership.jerryfetta.com. You get a 2-week trial of that, and you can check that out. Let me see what other questions we have here today. Jonathan Lee says, what is your opinion on HSAs? So Jonathan, that's not super related to what we're talking about, but I'll go ahead and answer your question. For those of you that don't know what HSA is, it stands for a health savings account. Okay, so it's something you can put money into, deduct off on your taxes, and then you can pay medical bills with it. I think it can be a good tax write-off if you use a self-directed or checkbook HSA. So a lot of HSAs ultimately end up with a bank or they end up on the stock market. And so I wouldn't put money into that. I would be looking at a self-directed or a checkbook HSA, and that would give me full control over the money, so I can do stuff with real estate and different things like that too. Jose says, does it mean flowing or an ecosystem? Jose, I think that is one of the definitions of economy. Yeah. Matt Eddy says, we're in the process of fixing my finances and credit. Thanks, Jerry and Lexi. Matt, you're awesome. Thank you for the comment. We're excited for you, man. Jose says, this is gold, literally and figuratively. Kenny, good to see you. Chris says, how did you get wisdom so young, Jerry? I just spent a lot of time learning. Good question, Chris. Chris, by the way, if you guys don't follow Chris, Chris is a major real estate investor down in Texas. He's a good guy to know and a good guy to follow on Facebook. But Chris, probably a lot like you, I spent a lot of my time reading and developing myself and growing. And so that's how I've come across a lot of this. Let me see what we have on Instagram here for questions. Good to see everyone tonight too. I'm always happy and excited to see people. Realize, guys, this is a Friday night. I've said this before, but for someone to be watching a course on personal finances on a Friday night really says a lot about their desire to grow and learn. So I appreciate and acknowledge everyone that's here watching. You could be out doing other stuff on a Friday. Most of your peers probably are, and it's very awesome to see that people are out here on a Friday learning about money. David has a question. So he says, actually, we covered the faith one. I think he's got another one. So David says, what about fear? Okay, so that's a good question. So we're talking again about the band and the areas of exchange. Fear, I would put that on the faith band. Okay, fear is faith. Fear is faith that something bad will happen. Okay, so if you're exchanging in fear, a lot of governments, dictatorships do that. That's the faith band, which is literally right before obligation, literally right before slavery and being forced to do something. That's where you'd see faith and fear. And again, this is in sense of economy. So we're not talking about religions and stuff like that. Totally different topic, has nothing to do with this. But that's where fear would reside on that band, to answer your question, David. Let me see if there's any other questions. Aaron said money is backed by nothing. That's true. Money is not backed by anything. Instagram is so interesting. I've got a group of typical Instagram people being negative, and then I've got this group of enforcers now that are kicking people off streams when they're being negative, which is awesome. Aaron says, Jerry, if money is useless, then it is the things that we own that make us most valuable. So almost, Aaron. So the things you own, that would be a commodity. If I own something, that's a commodity and that's valuable. That's about in the middle of the scale. Okay, the thing that's the most valuable is my ideas and my intention. Okay, between that, we've got things, we've got commodities that we own, we got wisdom, ideas, and then intention, all the way up the scale. So if we're just on things, we're about midpoint, and there's a lot of room up on the most valuable thing. Anyone that's ever had a brilliant idea that paid off understands what I mean. That by far is one of the most valuable things out there. What is the top again? Control of production and commodities. No, so the top is intention. If you DM me, Aaron, I'll send you just a screenshot of that so you can check it out. Awesome. I think that's all the questions we have tonight. Let me check Zoom one more time just to make sure. And if we don't have anything else, we'll probably wrap up. I think we've got 2 more questions on Zoom here. So someone says, what does the word assurance mean? Good question. So Josiah is asking, what does assurance mean? Let me go ahead and grab the definition. So the definition of assurance is certainty about something or a positive declaration intended to give confidence or a promise. Assurance is basically a promise, Josiah. So when we have assurance, that would be like the sacred account is assurance. Okay, we're getting an assurance, which is the promise to pay, which is better than faith or better than digits, because at least we have a promise there. A secured loan would be assurance. We have assurance that somebody's going to pay because we have a contract that says they will. So great question. Griffin says, while you're trying to get your money where you want, what do you spend your time doing? Working mostly, but what else? Better yet, what not to do? Good question. So Griffin, I think Griffin already knows the answer to this one. If I'm trying to get my money right, and I always am, I always have been. I remember going back and doing that, when I first started getting serious about money. The main thing I did was work. The second thing I did was personal development. Even today, if I were to split my work schedule, this is probably the least I've ever worked. So right now I'm spending about 40 to 50 hours a week on personal development, and I'm really only working maybe 20 to 30 hours a week. We'll do over $2 million this year in revenue working that small of hours. The personal development is strengthening those higher band levels, my intentions, my ideas, my wisdom, my knowledge. So Chris remarked, like, how did I get so much of that at a young age? I just let you guys know I'm doing about 40 to 50 hours a week of personal development. And that's how I get up there. So that's important. And then what not to do, man, I would not be doing any smoking, drinking, men, women, like anything that's promiscuous and going to like get me wrapped up in drama. Because the thing is if I'm trying to produce, my attention needs to be available. Okay. So if I've got my attention on crap that I did last weekend, or what disease I might have, or how I can't remember anything, like I can't really produce. So I would stay away from anything that is an inflow activity, which means it's affecting me. I'm not cause, I'm effect. I would stay away from any of that stuff, and I would be gravitating towards things where I'm cause, producing effects on other things. So that's kind of what I would do and not do there, to answer your question, Griffin. Perry says, what happens if I'm 6 months in and I lose my job? Get another one, man. You lose your job, you got to get another one. If you lose your job, again, we hit this a couple weeks ago. If you lose your job, there's two types of people there. There's people that are upset by that, and then there's people that they don't care. Okay. So if I lose my job, I'm one of the people that would be bothered by that. If I ever got fired from a job and I never did, it would bother me. I would look at what did I do to cause that? Okay. And then I could look at, all right, well, I caused it by doing this. I'm going to go get another job and not do this anymore. The other people that will lose a job are the people, collecting unemployment and subsidies. They're not looking for a job. They don't want one. They're not going to take responsibility. Really, they're probably only checking in to get the subsidy because they're being monitored to make sure they're actually applying for work. Jose said, Nano told me intention is greater than mechanics, and now I see the full picture. Totally, Jose. So intention is definitely greater than mechanics. You do have to have mechanics, but mechanics is a list, man. Like ultimately you do a recipe, like you bake brownies, that's mechanics. So you don't need to spend a lot of time on the ingredients, but you do need the intention to make the brownies. Otherwise the ingredients don't matter. So great questions and comments here. Let me see if there's anything else here on Instagram or Zoom. I don't see anything else, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. It's been great. If you have other questions, send me a DM. Whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, Zoom, send me an email, whatever. I always answer those. So I'm going to wrap up here. I want to thank everyone for watching. If this helped you, make sure that you share this with somebody. Okay. This is information that, again, I give this to you guys free every week because I want you to have the knowledge, but freaking nobody shares this stuff. So if you have somebody in your life that would be helped by this, share it to them. It costs them nothing. It costs you nothing. That's the intention of it, is to provide help for you financially. And if you would like to take the next step with us of becoming a client, seeing if we can actually help you with your personal finances, reach out to me and I can get you an appointment with my team and we'd make that happen. Anyways, other than that, that's everything I have for you guys tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to you all next time. All right, Zoom. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you next week.